Hey, eighth graders, it's Mrs. McDermott. Today is assessment day. I am going to make this video so quick. My husband took my son to go get his hair cut. My dog's outside. My daughter's playing at her cousin's, and my oldest, I don't know where she is. But so I finally have the house to myself. I think I'm going to be able to make a video without interruptions or dog barkings. Let's keep our fingers crossed. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your assessment today. First of all, I'm going to model what we want you to do in this assessment. We have been working on this all week. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, and then either Thursday or Friday, depending on when you did your last jot. But we want you to show us that you can do this proficiently and that you are thinking about what you're reading. So I'm going to model some thinking while reading. I'm going to finish the story, The Scholarship Jacket, which is that story about Martha, who lives with her grandparents, and she's number one in her class and deserves the scholarship jacket. But because there's someone else in her class whose father has more money or more power in the community, they don't want to give it to Martha, and they're going to try to make a new rule that says she has to pay for it. And they know her family's poor and probably won't pay for it, so that they can give it to the other girl. So we're going to pick up and finish that story. And then when I'm done doing that, you can use this model as something that you can do in the assessment. All right, so let's get going. Here's the scholarship jacket. I went outside and I looked at the field. So remember, this is right when Martha finds out that she has to pay for the scholarship jacket. And she's going to ask her grandpa if she can have the money. I went outside and I looked at the fields. There he was. I could see him walking between the rows, his body bent over all the little plants, hoe in hand. This makes me think, like, Grandpa has such a hard job, right? He works so hard and they still don't have any money, and it just kind of makes me sad. Being a farmer is a really hard job. You never get to leave your crops or your animals. And this in particular, it doesn't seem like he has machinery to help him or anything. It's just a really small little farm, and he works really hard. I walked slowly out to him, trying to think of how I could best ask him for the money. There was a cool breeze blowing and the sweet smell of mesquite in the air, but I didn't appreciate it. I kicked at the dirt clod. I wanted that jacket so much. It was more than just being the valedictorian and giving a little thank you speech for the jacket on graduation night. It represented 8 years of hard work and expectation. I knew I had to be honest with Grandpa. It was my only chance. He saw me and he looked up. He waited for me to speak. I cleared my throat nervously and then clasped my hands behind my back so he wouldn't see them shaking. Grandpa, I have a big favor to ask you, I said in Spanish, the only language he knew. He still waited silently. I tried again. Grandpa, this year the principal said the scholarship jacket is not going to be free. It's going to cost $15, and I have to take the money tomorrow, otherwise it will be given to someone else. The last words came out in an eager rush. Grandpa straightened up tiredly, and he leaned his chin on the hoe handle. He looked over the field that was filled with the tiny green bean plants. I waited desperately, hoping he'd say that I could have the money, and he turned to me and asked me quietly, "What does a scholarship jacket mean?" Good question, Grandpa. This makes me want to write and think this is really the crux of the issue, which means like this is what it's all about. It's not about just getting the jacket, is it? It's about the principle of getting the reward for being the best, not getting the reward because you can pay $15, right? It doesn't really mean what it's supposed to mean, but yet there's still this want for the material jacket, right? I answered quickly. Maybe there was a chance. It means you've earned it by having the highest grades for 8 years, and that's why they're giving it to you. But too late, I realized the significance of my words. Grandpa knew that I understood. It was not a matter of money. It wasn't that. he went back to the hoeing the weeds that sprang up between the dedicated little bean plants. It was a time-consuming job. Sometimes the small shoots were right next to each other. This makes me wonder why the author would write about weeds at this point. Like, what is she trying to tell us about Grandpa? Why would this be important to the story? And I guess in my head, I'm thinking, like, Grandpa knows the score, right? He is doing the job and he knows the value of hard work. He knows that those weeds can ruin his crop and that it takes time to make sure that he's, getting things correct and doing the right thing. He knows the little things matter. I don't know. Finally, he spoke. Then if you pay for it, Martha, it's not a scholarship jacket, is it? Tell your principal I will not pay the $15. I walked back to the house and I locked myself in the bathroom for the long time. I was angry at my grandfather, even though I knew he was right. And I was angry with the board, whoever they were. Why did they have to change the rules just when it was my turn to win the jacket? This kind of makes me think, like, I know sometimes when I've been disappointed, I've been mad at the wrong people, right? Like, I've known when I wanted to do something, even as a teenager, that I probably knew was going to get me in trouble. When my mom and dad said no, I was really mad at them, right? Even though they were just trying to take care of me. I was very sad. I was a very sad and withdrawn girl who dragged into the principal's office the next day. This time he did look me in the eyes. What did your grandfather say? I sat very straight in my chair. He said to tell you that he won't pay the $15. The principal muttered something that I couldn't understand under his breath, and then he walked over to the window. He looked at something outside. He looked bigger than usual when he stood up, and he was a tall, gaunt man with gray hair, and I watched the back of his head while I waited for him to speak. Why? He finally asked. Your grandfather has the money. Doesn't he own a small bean farm? Ugh, I hate the principal right now. He knows that he is taking advantage of Martha and her grandpa. He knows that they don't have any money, and he knows it's wrong, and he's still being a jerk. I looked at him, forcing my eyes to stay dry. He said if I had to pay for it, then it wouldn't be a scholarship jacket. I said, and I stood up to leave. So I guess you'll just have to give it to Joanne. I hadn't meant to say that. It just slipped out. I was almost out to the door when he stopped me. Martha, wait. She got him. Once she said that it wasn't about whether or not they had the money, and the fact that they indeed understood that there's something fishy going on, he knows he's caught and he knows he's doing the wrong thing. Yes. I turned and looked at him, waiting. What did he want now? I could feel my heart pounding. Something bitter and vile tasting was coming up in my mouth. I was afraid I was going to be sick. I didn't need any sympathy speeches. He sighed loudly at me, biting his lip as if thinking, okay, damn it. We'll make an exception in your case. I'll tell the board. You'll get your jacket. I could hardly believe it. I spoke in a trembling rush. Oh, thank you, sir. Suddenly I felt great. I didn't know about adrenaline in those days, but I knew something was pumping through me, making me feel as tall as the sky. I wanted to yell, jump, run the mile, do something. I ran out so I could cry in the hall where there was no one to see me. At the end of the day, Mr. Schmidt winked at me and he said, "Hey, I hear you're getting your jacket this year." His face looked as happy and innocent as a baby's, but I knew better. Without answering, I gave him a quick hug and I ran to the bus. Aww, I'm so happy she has a teacher who's in her corner. Teachers are cool, right? Super cool. Oops. I cried on the walk home again, but this time it was because I was so happy. I couldn't wait to tell Grandpa, and I ran straight to the field. I joined him in a row where he was working, and without saying anything, I crouched down and I started pulling the weeds with my hands. Grandpa worked alongside me for a few minutes, but he didn't ask what happened. After I had a little pile of weeds between the rows, I stood up and I faced him. The principal said he's making an exception for me, Grandpa. I'm getting the jacket after all. That's after I told him what you said. Grandpa didn't say anything. He just gave me a pat on the shoulder and a smile. He pulled out a crumpled red handkerchief that he always carried in his back pocket, and he wiped the sweat off of his forehead. I think that this might be sort of metaphorical sweat. Yeah, he's hot from working, but I feel like of course he wanted his granddaughter to have the jacket, and so he was taking a chance by saying, we have to do the right thing here. I mean, he probably did have the $15, but he knew it was wrong. And so I think he's like, whew, I did it. Martha's still getting her jacket. I didn't ruin anything. The lesson worked, kind of. Better go see if your grandmother needs any help with supper. I gave him a big grin. He didn't fool me. I skipped and ran back to the house, whistling some silly tune. So that's the end of the scholarship jacket. Everything worked out, and hopefully the mean principal learned his lesson, right? But also Martha learned a lesson that, to have principles and hard work pays off, right? So here's what you're going to do to complete the assessment. You're going to go to your English class in Schoology, and you'll see the little assessment here that says Reader's Notebook Assessment, okay? And there's some directions there. You can also see the rubric there in Schoology. And we are going to give you now in class 20 minutes to read and think and jot. Okay, so this assessment is on what you do today in your reading work. It's not based off of anything you've done before. It's on what you do today in your reading work. So you will see that as you are ready then to complete the assessment after you do your 20 minutes of reading and thinking and jotting, then you are going to go to the assessment, and you'll see there's a spot on the first slide for taking a picture of the jots that you do today, and you're going to insert them there. Then you are going to, on the second slide, write a response that shows your thinking, okay? And then if you are still like, I don't get what I'm supposed to be doing, there are examples of written responses on slide 3, and then the rubric, how you're being graded, is on slide 4. So everything is there for you. If you are at home working, make sure that when you're doing this DLA Kids that you put yourself in a place where you think you're not going to get distracted, right? So that you can just start the assessment, read and jot for your 20 minutes, take your picture, insert it, do your written response, which might take you 10 to 15 minutes, and then submit it. Okay, this shouldn't take longer than that. The big chunk of this is the reading and the jotting. Okay, so just joking. My kid just came in, so I got interrupted after all. That haircut took no time at all. All right, so hold 20 minutes for reading, jotting, and then complete your assessment. Here is what it's going to look like. So on the first slide, this is where you're going to put the jots that you make today, all right? The second slide is for your written reflection. So you are going to pick a prompt, right? For each section, you're going to complete it. So first of all, you're going to pick a skill that you used. So whatever skill you want, did you have to do a fix-it strategy? Did you have to connect with a character? Did you make a movie in your head? Oh, look, now my dog's here. Oh, okay. And then you're going to give evidence from your text. So that's why sometimes on your jots, we want you to put, the page number or know where it came from so that you can go back in your book and say, so I had to reread when I read this sentence, right? And then show us the sentence, prove that you read, okay? And then give us that explanation. How did using that skill make reading more understandable for you? Okay. Here are some examples of different things. Here's an example of how you would write about a fix-it strategy. Here's how you could connect with a character. Here's how you could explain to us that you made a movie in your head. And then here is the grading rubric. So you get points just for doing your proper heading. So look back at those other jots and make your jot heading appropriate and correct, and you get 2 easy points there. All right. So that's it, you guys. You are going to rock this. Do your best work. This is an assessment, so it's worth more points than the little daily points we're giving you. You're going to do great. I know that you're all readers, and we've been really impressed by the hard work that you've been doing and reading. You're actually into your books. You're connecting with your books, and we're really excited about that. So off you go. You're going to do great.